Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the rundown. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and give this video some love, as it really helps with the channel and it means a lot to me. We're pushing 50 subscribers and I'm extremely grateful, considering I once started this channel with 0 subs 6 months ago, and to slowly watch this build up and the journey it's been amazing. So thank you guys, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. And for this video, I'm going to be ranking my top 10 most difficult races I have finished from when I first started running till now. This list includes some insane ultras, personal bests in many distances, and going through hell and back many times in many of these different events. Some of these races you have heard of and are quite familiar with. Some of you might even be able to relate to what I'm about to say, and some of you may have never heard of such of these races. So I'm going to break them down from start to finish, starting with our top 10. Number 10 coming in, we have the Port Douglas Half Marathon 2025. Now, this race I feel is a solid entry to the top 10. It was the first year I've ran in it, and I believe the first time the event held the half marathon distance. Do comment if I'm wrong. 21 kilometers of hell from start to finish based off my experience. Even though the course elevation was only 87 meters gained, it felt like 870. It was brutal. The first 2 kilometers was great. Running through the streets of Port Douglas, during that moment I was thinking, oh yeah, this is great, you know. I didn't do my course homework, but it was off to an awesome start. But after the first 2 kilometers, my journey met the lookout. And man, I thought I was prepared till I met this hill. All my hill training went out the window. I was far from prepared to deal with this sudden climb. It wasn't runnable. I ended up, I found myself walking in the first 3 kilometers, which felt pretty weird. I didn't do my course homework, and for this race, it bit me in the ass, that's for sure. After hiking up and down the lookout, I was then struggling to control my heart rate again, as it was averaging 180 at this point, even during the flat sections. And I didn't hit my goal pace for this race. Finishing the final 4 miles on the actual beach was also just fuel adding to the fire. One of the hardest finishes to a race I've dealt with. And you know how it goes to all my runners out there. You can already guess I've signed up again for 2026. That was number 10 on the list. Now, coming in at number 9, I have the Carina to Port Douglas race 2025. Now, this race could have been a lot harder for myself if I had done the full solo 63 kilometer journey. But my brother Jared, who got engaged at the Great Wheelbarrow Race from the last video, if you haven't watched that, please check it out. And my good mate Kyle Rayner decided to split it up among ourselves. I wish I could say we split it up evenly, but I somehow got caught in the middle, running leg 2 and leg 3, being a total of 33 kilometers. Now, this race was a more fun race on the list. It was a constant battle between myself and the teams in second and third. It was awesome to see out there. However, the course had a lot of nasty hills, twists and turns in the trail, which was far from what I'm used to. Not being as prepped as I wanted to for this race, it was definitely a challenge, that's for sure. Big shout out to the team that won. We only had 2 runners, and shout out to the solos that also finished. No doubt we will return as a team, hopefully with a 4th runner. And now, coming in at number 8, for the hardest races I have ran in, we have the Great Wheelbarrow Race Trio 2026. Again, as mentioned before, if you haven't watched those videos, please do check them out on my channel to witness just how insane this achievement was. Now, these 3 days were insane. Honestly, the hardest part this time wasn't the idea of jumping in and out of the bus and pushing a wheelbarrow, because us boys were used to that. We've got a combined experience of 20 plus years, so it wasn't too much of the challenging part. However, the hardest part this time was the time we were trying to chase. We had to average sub 3 minutes 30 per kilometer throughout the whole entire 140 kilometers. A pace none of us boys can even hold on for 5 kilometers. So how was it possible? That's why it's on my list of top 10 hardest races, because it wasn't easy. We pushed ourselves to absolute breaking point. We knew how fast that previous record was, so we knew the effort we had to put in to grab it, and the rewards follow. Smashing the record by over 30 minutes We just hope it doesn't get beaten again, because I don't think we'll be able to match that pace again. And for number 7, this one's a bit different from my previous ones, being the shortest distance on the list. We have my 5 kilometer PB achieved earlier this year, my first ever sub 18 minute 5k. Now this run was an amazing highlight of mine. Coming into it with sickness, I gave it my absolute all. During this run and each and every lap, I just kept thinking to myself, okay, I'm happy with this one, I can just stop now. Which then followed the thoughts of maybe just one more lap, see how we're feeling then. And I believe I just kept doing that until the final kilometer, and then the thoughts changed to, holy crap, I'm on track for sub 18, this is it. And that pretty much motivated me to finish that race, otherwise I was just going to tap out and be satisfied with the effort I had already put in. But I kept going, gave it my all, and for those who run track, it's hard to explain the near-death feeling, but let me tell you, when I crossed that line, that's the first race I collapsed. I was completely destroyed, heart rate averaged 190 while being sick. And in summertime in Cairns, it certainly makes this moment one to remember, and for the happiness and the pain I went through, which is why I ranked this run number 7. Now, number 6 on the list, we have a pretty big difference from the 7th one to the 6th one. We have my 100 kilometer solo effort. Now, this was something I just woke up and said to myself, I'm going to run 100 kilometers overnight, really test my mind and body and see what I can do. I only told 2 people by memory about this run I was attempting, as I didn't want too many to know in case I failed. On the Monday night, I put on the shoes and started running 100 kilometers solo on the Esplanade in Cairns. Had my partner every 20 kilometers providing aid and food to keep me going. Now, I made a video about this as well on my channel. I'll have the links in the description. It would break it down a lot more than what I'll talk about now, but this run, it did things to me. For the first time in my life, sober or not sober, I started seeing hallucinations. I never believed in such thing when ultra runners talk about it, but now I do, having gone through it. It was pretty scary, that's for sure. But I kept soldiering on, every 20 kilometer interval, stop, rest, and go again. Just under 12 hours of run time, which I was stoked with. Just over 12 hours total, from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. It took a lot of mental strength to finish this one. All for the couldn't sleep activity on my Strava the next day, which caught everyone off guard. It was pretty hilarious. Next on my list, at number 5, I have my first ever sub 40 minute 10 kilometer race back in 2024. And I know you guys are probably thinking how this is harder than running 100 kilometers randomly. And I feel like the meaning of sub 40 to me meant so much at the time that I was willing to die for it. Having dedicated my life to this goal for 6 months at the time, I was so hungry for it. I had never dedicated anything like this towards running before. And I just remember on race day, everyone having their doubts, saying I'd finish around 41 minutes or 42 minutes. But I remember just hitting sub 4 minute splits for most of that race, finishing at a 39.52, 8 seconds to spare. Haven't been any happier than when I crossed that line as a sub 40 10 kilometer runner. I was over the moon. And now it's crazy to know I did that pace for half a marathon the other day, just for a training session. And that was nowhere near as hard as the effort I put in for that first sub 40, which is why I'm ranking it number 5 on my list of most hardest races I've ever finished. Now for number 4, another race on my YouTube channel is the Cairns 50 2026. Now the effort of this run purely reflects the result I finished with. The goal for this race was top 3. Nothing more, nothing less. I even put that out to the world at the start of the year on my Instagram. Started the race smooth, went out at a 4:30 pace feeling good. However, for the first time in my life in a race, I had really bad stomach issues. I thought it would pass, but it didn't, forcing myself to go to the toilet. I was 3rd at that point and dropped to 5th. Finished in the toilet thinking only once and I shouldn't have to go again. A few kilometers later and my stomach turned on me again. I was seriously considering going to a nearby bush. I just couldn't hold on, but I somehow made it to the toilet for the second time. Having burnt so much energy, this was the most frustrating part, burning so much energy, getting from 5th to 3rd, just to lose that lead again. I was almost in tears at this point, finished for the second time in the toilet, chasing that top 3 again. About 35 kilometers in, and at this point I found myself in there again. This time in tears, knowing my race was over. I was screaming, swearing and crying all at once, while I could hear the support of runners overtaking my position. Got to the final 8 kilometers, final lap, and it was do or die. I took 2 caffeine gels at once, in hopes to bring me back to speed. Worst case was I just end up in the toilet again and call it race over. But wow, we are sprung to life, overtaking 4th and chasing down 3rd. This amazing moment of me overtaking 3rd is in my Cairns 50 video on the channel, but it was an amazing moment for me, and to sprint home and still finish top 3 podium after going through hell and back. This was one of the hardest race efforts I've had to perform, which is why this is in my top 4. Time for my top 3. Now this top 3 list was based off how I felt in the moment, not so much looking back, as I can't really remember them too clearly, especially the top 2 as much. However, in number 3, I have my 12 laps of the Backyard Ultra 2025. Over 80 kilometers of pure hell. During the day in early summer in Cairns, 32 degrees average. Nothing about this was fun. My previous PB was 8 laps, but I really wanted more. Goal was to make it to 24 hours, but I was far off, only hitting the first hours of nightfall. Now, the hardest part about this race is the heat, but also the fueling. Super important. One wrong move and you're done. And that's what ended my run. My fueling couldn't keep up to the point I ran my last 2 laps on empty, just pushing on with grit and mind power to make it to dark in hopes I could come back alive. But I was forced to stop after I couldn't stay standing without wanting to vomit from extreme nausea. Now, those who don't know what a Backyard Ultra is, it's pretty much a 6.7 kilometer loop that you have an hour to complete before you start your next 6.7 kilometer loop in the next hour frame. Failing to finish in your lap's hour results in DNF. However, I would love to return to that 24-hour goal. Unsure if it will be this year, however, due to commitments on that week, and there's a lot of preparing behind the scenes for this race, such as setting up camp the day before, and having a support crew there to help you, keep you going and fuel you up, and having a whole setup. And but it's an awesome event, and I highly recommend it to anyone in Cairns or around the area looking for a challenge, because this one will definitely give you a challenge. And taking number 2 spot, we have the first time I ever raced the Great Pyramid Race back in 2019. Now, I remember during this race, I said to myself, quote, "Now this is the first race since the race I ran for number 1 spot, which I'll reveal next, that has come close to that." The unexpected mental and physical pain was unbelievable during this race. It was my first time ever being up on the pyramid, so I had no heads up just how insane it was. Some people might say this pyramid race is far from as hard as what I've made it out to be, but during my first ever time on it, in my experience, it ranks number 2, just purely based off that. 12 kilometer race total, 3 kilometers to the base, 3 kilometers up, 3 kilometers down, 3 kilometers to finish. 3 kilometers over 900 meters. Insanity. Don't think my body has gone from so fresh to completely exhausted as fast as it did in this race. And once I got to the top, going down was just as hard, if not worse, on fatigued legs. Since then, crazy enough, I've done this race 3 more times since. I think even more. They say it's like giving birth. You go through hell, yet you find yourself doing it again and again and again. And you'll see me at the start line for this year's as well, which takes place on my birthday, so hopefully I get some birthday luck for a new PB. And now, taking the crown for the hardest race I have ran ever in my life, the Great Wheelbarrow Race Solo, 140 kilometers back in 2017, being the youngest solo to ever finish that race, being aged 16 years old, and still to this day have held that record. Now this race is the reason I still run today, to be honest. It's the reason I take on these insane challenges I've listed in my top 10 and future ones. It trained my brain at such a young age to not fear what fears most, to stay strong when everything around you is saying to stop and give up, to keep fighting and to do what you set out to do. Running 140 kilometers solo was the closest I've got from actually having something seriously go wrong with me. I had an ambulance crew on standby next to me the whole time in case I were to collapse. I went out too hard on day 1, just made it in with 8 minutes to spare on day 2, and barely ran on the final day. I could go all night about this race, but I'll possibly save it for another video in the future. But this was the clear proof that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I have never felt pain on my body like I did for this race, and the most stupid part about it was my longest run before that was just 15 kilometers in training. This race was purely all mind. It's what has shaped me to who I am today, and I'm super grateful I did it for my future self back then. Younger me honestly would be so proud of what I've achieved now.
I was thinking, oh, how am I going to do day 3? But yeah, everyone came along and supported it and helped.
And that's my top 10, everyone. If you've made it to the end, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and are all inspired. Please, if you like these sort of videos, let me know. Leave a comment or a like, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We are so close to 50 subscribers and I have huge things coming. So stay tuned to my socials. Thank you again, and I'll see you all in the next one, which will be the Rundown episode 6. Till next time.